My name's Nick Armstrong. I am the lead organizer of Fort Collins Startup Week and Fort Collins Comic-Con and probably a host of other things that I'm forgetting at this moment. But I have hoped that you've had a lot of fun this week. Have you? What have been some of the things that you really liked? Shout them out.
You guys.
Us? Thank you. What else?
Pitching.
Pitching. Okay, great, cool. What did you learn?
How to sell.
How to sell. What else?
How to network.
How to network.
How to look good in pictures.
That's Moses. Moses is back there.
100%.
Who else? What else?
Appropriate email greetings.
Appropriate email greetings, yeah. You got one? What else? How to manage your finances. So, this whole week has been, who's met somebody new? Yeah, you guys got your money's worth. This is a free event, so, you know. What's your action item? Are you going to follow up? Are you going to do something? Who's going to do something after this week with something that they learned?
Launch our company.
Hold on. Now, I'm going to turn around and pretend I didn't see that. Who's going to do something with what they've learned? This, Julie, your hand's not up. Okay, good. All right, good. Now look, this event is not the Nick Armstrong show. It is very much a team effort. So if you're part of this Fort Collins Startup Week team, please stand up. Or make yourself known some other way if it's easier to do that. Thank you. Whether it's Candace with the Scale Up Day, Phil bringing and recruiting in diversity speakers for us, bringing together some amazing lineup of speakers, Penn for giving the keynote, Denny for hooking us up with RVC and great investors. Who else we have? Emily, who launched the pilot program, the pilot pathway program. Who used that in this room? Awesome. More of you will raise your hands next year. Mike for getting us those amazing consultants from the SBDC, Julie and Mickey from the Music District, and Peggy Lyle from the Creative District for putting together Art Up Week. There are so many moving components to this. Shannon Hine lined up all of the Latino business owners that you've seen this week and who've done amazing jobs presenting their community to us. One of the major aims for this week was representation and inclusion. And so we wanted to make sure that not only were we just saying, hey, you're welcome to be here, but actually purposefully reaching out and making those connections and saying, you need to be on our stage. Please come, please present what you know. So have we done a good job with that this year? Okay. If not, you can let me know too. It's all right. What I will also say is that just like this event, which cannot occur without the team, entrepreneurs don't exist in isolation. Entrepreneurs cannot exist without a social support network. I wouldn't be standing here right now if my wife weren't at home hanging out with the kiddos and picking them up from school and whatever else. It would be impossible for me to be here. And so I think that is something that we need to recognize. We're going to do better next year at putting together panels for parents at times when they can attend, and with childcare and other things like that. So that's an area that we can grow in. If there are other areas that we can grow in, please let us know. If there are things that you want to see next year, or people that you want to see next year, or if you want to be here next year, please let us know. Make yourself known. And we will also commit to doing those purposeful outreaches. So in that spirit, how many years ago was it? 5, 7? 7 years ago.
Actually
8, okay. So I got this email from this crazy go-getter named Jana, and Jana was like, hey, I want to come check out, see what you guys are doing. I'm kind of thinking about coming to Fort Collins and going to move here, and not really sure what to do about it, and wanted to get to know the scene, and was really involved in Ignite Phoenix, a key part of the team. And I was part of Ignite Fort Collins, and I said, yeah, come on, we'd love to swap notes and see what you guys are doing and see how we can improve. And fast forward 2 years later, we were co-running Ignite Fort Collins. Did any of you go to Ignite Fort Collins? Yes. Awesome. So the pitchy 5-minute presentations, it was a lot of fun. No longer exists, but maybe it might be coming back. We don't know. Jana is one of the shrewdest business people that I have ever met. She is... I guess... I was running around doing logistical stuff, so I didn't get to do the networking thing. But for real, Jana has a real heart and soul for small business, medium-sized business, and growing business in Northern Colorado. And through her work in Launch NoCo and the Pitch NoCo competition, which we're going to see here after her keynote, she is doing incredible things to elevate the small business community. And I can't think of anybody who I would rather have give the closing keynote of Fort Collins Startup Week. So, Jana.
All right, if I talk like this, can you hear me all the way in the back?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm a classically trained thespian stage manager, and the day I need a microphone to talk to a room this big, you should probably put me in a coffin. Okay. I like you. Okay, so I'm going to start this conversation tonight. For those of you I don't know, I am Jana Sanchez. I am the Executive Director of Launch NoCo, and I'll get into what we do here very soon. Launch NoCo also supports 1 Million Cups, and I see some of our regulars here in the audience, so thank you for being here. As well as, like many entrepreneurs who are running their own businesses, I am still got a day job. And so I am a senior business advisor for the Trebuchet Group, doing teamwork development, facilitation, and strategic planning. So I spend my days, regardless of which hat I'm wearing, talking to business owners. And it gives me a very unique perspective on entrepreneurship in Northern Colorado. So we're going to talk some about that today. I'm going to pick on a few of you who have no idea that I'm going to pick on you, so that's pretty normal. And I will get through this as quickly as possible because right after this we are going to get to 5 pitches that are very excited to compete for you tonight on what they might be winning in terms of prize packages. So with no further ado, I'm going to give you a little bit of context as how I'm looking at the future of entrepreneurship in Northern Colorado. And I do that through the lens of Launch NoCo. And our mission is to advance and support entrepreneurship and small business in Northern Colorado. That's what we do. That's why we exist. And there's a really long backstory around that, but what I will tell you is that when I got laid off and tried to start my business, oh my God, is it hard. How many people in here are entrepreneurs or business owners? Okay, the majority of you. Anybody here feel like it's been easy? Okay. That's about where we're at with it, okay? So what I developed Launch NoCo with a fantastic group of people to do is that we help companies form, grow, and stay in Larimer and Weld County. And we do that in 3 very particular ways. One, it's important to us to connect the entrepreneur with the right resource at the right time. If you don't know that that resource exists as you need it, it doesn't help you if you figure it out 6 months from now. Right? It really would have been nice if I'd known that back then, but I've moved on. So we try to make sure that we have those happening in the right moments for entrepreneurs. The second piece for us is that we monitor and curate the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Now I'm going to talk a lot more about that, but just for a frame of reference for me, when I say entrepreneurial ecosystem, how many of you already know what that means? Not nearly as many, so good, okay. We'll get into a little bit of that in a bit. And then we facilitate access to capital for Northern Colorado founders' needs. And one of the things that we talk about is that the needs of capital for our Northern Colorado founders are very different than the needs of folks in Boulder or in Denver or in Silicon Valley. So it looks a little bit different as to what we want to do with that capital and how we want to behave with our companies moving forward. So we are a regional organization. We operate in Larimer and Weld County. For those of you who have no idea what that means, we're talking Fort Collins to Longmont, Estes Park to Greeley. Okay, that area right there, which is very rapidly becoming a regional powerhouse that we need to be paying attention to. We work with businesses that are less than 5 years old to get them through that first critical hump. And then we also work very clearly, I have to look at my own slides, I don't know what I put up here, that we are industry and type agnostic. So what we mean by that is that it doesn't matter what kind of business you're starting or in what kind of industry, we are here to help get you through those first 5 years. Okay? Does that give you a little bit of frame of reference? All right. So what's the case for entrepreneurship? We talk about it being an important part of the economy, but why is that? So I'm going to lay it out for you. Communities need economies, and economies need entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs need ecosystems, and ecosystems need builders. So I'm going to walk you through that in the next half hour or so. Okay? Maybe. All right, so why do communities need economies? Well, the first piece is, anybody who's ever worked in a city government will tell you, is that we have to have a tax base. Without a tax base, we don't have an infrastructure, we don't have fire departments, we don't have schools, any of those kinds of things that make it really nice to live in a civilized society. So that's the first piece. The second piece is that entrepreneurs often are the drivers of innovation and making changes in the way that we handle problems. And so they're important to make sure that we are continually progressing as a society. They address the challenges that keep showing up that we don't necessarily have immediate ways to solve. And then the last and probably most important piece is entrepreneurs are the ones who provide the jobs for the rest of us so that we have that opportunity. If any of you have ever held a steady paycheck, aren't they nice? And sometimes they even come with benefits, right? Entrepreneurship, we take all that risk and see what ends up happening, but they're the ones who help provide those jobs. So communities need entrepreneurs. And why is that? Oh, I've got the double slide in here and I forgot to fix it. Okay, economies need entrepreneurs because they start companies. And not only do they start companies, but if you're here for the last panel, you get to hear about the fact that they grow companies. And we'll see what that looks like. But more than anything, we've had it proven over and over and over again that all new net jobs in communities and in the country are created by businesses that are less than 5 years old. All new jobs on a net scale are created by businesses that are less than 5 years old. How many of you have a company that's less than 5 years old? No pressure. Okay? And entrepreneurs are what are driving that progress and turning concepts into innovations. How many of you started your business to solve a problem that pissed you off? Yep. That's one of the fundamental things that entrepreneurs do. Okay? So to my point about entrepreneurs driving that net new job piece, this actually comes from the Colorado Lending Source. And if you don't know Mike O'Donnell, you should. He's a phenomenal human being. But what they showed us here, right, is companies that are less than a year, this is where the jobs are being added. And as you get more, you lose some because you close. It's hard being an entrepreneur, we get that. But when you get through here, you really are looking at a full net gain. And so Colorado itself had a net gain of a little bit more than 40,000 new jobs driven solely by new companies that are less than 5 years old. That's kind of a big deal. So why are we not supporting entrepreneurs at the level that all of you would like to be supported at? How many of you are feeling completely 100% supported in building your business? I'm not seeing, you and I are going to have to talk. Okay, so we know in Colorado, if you can look at the Kauffman Index here, we know in Colorado that we actually do a lot better here creating new jobs than in many other places in the country. In fact, most companies less than a year old in Colorado are hiring 6.5 employees in their first year. How many of you are feeling a little behind that curve? That's okay. It's an average. You're doing fine. Okay? So what are we doing specifically here in Fort Collins? And you can read the fun text here if you'd like. But the deal that comes out is that based off of the population that we have here, we should be roughly starting about 500 companies a year in Fort Collins. The data is actually showing we're starting somewhere between 600 and 700 companies a year in Fort Collins. Stop and think about that for a second. How many people are down in their basement with a laptop trying to figure out, how do I write a business plan? Yeah, I see your hands. Figuring that out here in Fort Collins. And if that's actually true, and the data pretty much bears out that it is, why are they not sitting in this room with all of us? Do you feel like you met 700 people this week who just started a business? We might have a little bit of work to do, okay? But fundamentally, entrepreneurship is in decline. Over the last 30 years, if you look at this line, it hasn't been doing well across the country. And why is that? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It does suck. There are parts of it that are good, but some of it does, right? Part of it is that we've ended up using old models about how we grow entrepreneurs, and we haven't evolved those models. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, about how we evolve into the future of entrepreneurship so that we are more supported, so that we have more capability, and that it's not as scary for somebody out there to figure out that they too can start their own company. I have a, You too. I have a very deep philosophy that people are happier and healthier when they control their revenue streams and their time. And entrepreneurship is the fastest and easiest way to do both of those things. So, entrepreneurs need ecosystems. And they need them because starting a business is hard, right? I didn't see a single hand go up when I said, do you think it's been easy? And I bet, and I'm not gonna make you raise your hands, but I bet if you had a breakdown moment as an entrepreneur and there were tears, or you threw things, or you wanted to chuck it all and say, nope, I'm done, you've all had that moment. And if you have a significant other, they've gotten to live that moment with you, right? So entrepreneurship takes time. It's those nights that you're not gonna be there. And those can be really hard, and the things that you sacrifice for that. And it's lonely. Oh my God, can it be lonely? How many of you have felt lonely building your business? The head nodding, right? That's fixable with an ecosystem that's properly put together and you are plugged into it. The traditional methods of supporting businesses and entrepreneurship aren't necessarily working anymore. When you talk to old-fashioned economic development folks, and I don't know if I've got any of the City of Fort Collins folks in here, so I'll be careful. When you talk to old-fashioned economic development folks, what they're looking for is tax breaks, right? We're gonna get you into an accelerator or an incubator program. We're gonna give you an infusion of capital. Well, the thing is that those methods support the actual business. What would be different about our ecosystem if we actually supported the people who were building those companies? Would you feel better if you as a person were supported as an entrepreneur rather than everybody supporting your business? Can we do both at the same time? I'm pretty sure we can. We just have to figure out how we're going to do that. So, entrepreneurs need ecosystems. And when I asked you whether or not you know what an entrepreneurial ecosystem is, there are very few of you who raised your hands. And somebody pointed out to me that I spend this time occasionally with too many people who know what I'm talking about, and so I speak in coded phrases. So I'm going to actually explain what I see and what the Kauffman Foundation and several other major entrepreneurial drivers across the country feel is a really solid entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the first piece of that is the resource providers. So if you would classify yourself as a resource provider to entrepreneurs, raise your hand, right? So the folks that we have, the SBDC, those in Startup Week, we've got the Innosphere, we've got lunch and learns that are happening, the Music District is part of that. Those are resource providers where we're able to get access to information. And that free flow of information back and forth to the entrepreneur is important. Second piece is a mentor and advisor. If you think you've been a mentor or an advisor to an entrepreneur or small business owner, raise your hand. Now, how many of you haven't been paid to do that? Right? My husband should be raising his hand somewhere. Yeah, right? So we have a bunch of them here in town. Bill, I see you back there, and it's funny, your Sage is up here as one of those mentorship groups. We have 1 Million Cups, we have RVC, we've got the SBDC, and there's a slew of various consultants in this room and across this city who are happy to help you with your business in one way or another. The third piece of that is talent. And one of the things that we've discovered right now in a really tight job market is that talent is hard. And it's really hard to find talent that has the right skill set, that has the right passion, and is really dedicated to building something from scratch. And we might need more people who are interested in doing that. And so, as Chuck mentioned on the panel earlier, one of the things that we're going to have to figure out as an ecosystem and as a region is how do we attract the right kind of people here to help us build the companies we want to build? What does that look like for us? And the next on our ecosystem here is the support groups, right? So those are meetup groups. We've got NoCo Think Tank and She Leads and 1 Million Cups and the Northern Colorado community across the region. These are the folks who are getting together because they recognize that building a business is hard. They recognize that you do better with some support of it, and that you shouldn't be doing it all by yourself down in your basement on your own, right? Next piece, municipalities. As much as we'd like to say that we operate in a vacuum as entrepreneurs, there are some things that actually matter in terms of how the city government responds, the county government, what the state is doing to support or not support entrepreneurs, and how that's working. And so they play an integral role in how we're regulated as businesses as well. And then the last piece is capital. How many of you would like to have more money infused into your business? Right? There's a few of that, right? And that comes in a lot of different ways. We have lenders, we have VCs, we have angels, there's family equity money, there's loans, there's grants. Capital comes in a lot of different forms, and we as entrepreneurs have to figure out what we're willing to give up in order to get the money we need to move our dreams forward. And sometimes that looks very different for our region than it does for other places. So, what comes next? We know what we have. We have some idea of what it looks like and how we all work together. So what comes next? Well, it really depends. And it depends on a few things, and I'll walk you through this, but I will tell you the long answer in the very shortest form. It depends on who the hell shows up. And the fact that you're in this room means that you've at least started that process of showing up, so thank you for that. So, ecosystems are often closed systems, and not everybody recognizes, how do I break into one? And so if we're going to continue building a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem, we need to codify the way that people get into it. What are the on-ramps that we're looking for to make it easy for new business owners to access our resources within the ecosystem? And one of those things are resource guides. Now, I will be 100% honest with you guys. I was really excited about being able to launch NoCo's first resource guide at Startup Week. And let me tell you, we're an all-volunteer organization, and there were a few other things that happened before that ended up happening. But it will be coming up in the next couple of weeks because I've got the Mayor's Entrepreneurship Summit on March 30th, and I've got to have it done by then. So keep an eye on our website for that. But that'll look like, how do we tell you what resources provide what help, and how do you get a hold of them? Where do you go to find them? And we do that for both Larimer and Weld County, right? Remember that regionality piece? The next part of that is meetups and groups. How many of you have been to a meetup for entrepreneurship in the last year? Right? Did you meet somebody who's having some of the same things that you are? Right? Meetup groups help people normalize. It can feel really lonely. It can feel really complex. And quite frankly, not everybody knows how to file their quarterly taxes. You are not alone. Meetup groups help normalize what you're going through as an entrepreneur. And then third spaces. Is anyone familiar with the concept of third spaces? Right? Third spaces are this. You live at home, you go to work. Third space is where you hang out. And we used to have one of those. Galvanize and Mesh were a fantastic place in terms of entrepreneurs being able to hang out with each other without having to do anything other than just show up. And you'd be amazed at the kind of things that happened. But while we have phenomenal co-working spaces here, we don't necessarily have a third space for entrepreneurs anymore. And I think that's one of the important things that we're going to have to figure out as we grow and build our ecosystem and community. So the next piece of this, after we build the on-ramps, is we need to figure out where the connecting existing solutions are, right? We have a lot of phenomenal things. Do they talk to each other? Right? The juicy parts of an ecosystem are where there's intersections. So what are we doing to help drive those intersections? Let me ask this. How many of you don't live or work in Fort Collins in this room? All right? There's some good hands right there, right? We are a region, and that means we have to have porous boundaries. It means that some of us live in Fort Collins but work in Loveland. Some of us live in Timnath but work in Fort Collins. We are all over the place, and none of us pay attention to those boundaries really as we try to build our businesses. And so what are we doing on a regional level to make it easier for entrepreneurs to be able to cross-support things? So I'm going to get really honest here. How many of you are from Loveland? Just a couple, right? Why is it that Loveland doesn't show up to Fort Collins Startup Week? There you go, because it's called Fort Collins Startup Week, so they built something called Made in Loveland, right? But what would happen if we were to change the name, be more regional, and honest to goodness, get all of us together, right? If you look at the projections that are moving forward for our region, boundaries aren't going to matter here real soon, right? By 2050, there's going to be 250,000 people in the Fort Collins, Loveland MSA. That's a lot of people. And they're not going to care that the SBDC is in Fort Collins or is in Loveland or that the Innisphere has a presence in one or the other. They just want to be able to access the resources that help them build their business. And so that's one of the things that we've got to start looking at on a regional level. And the next piece is who isn't engaged? I'm also going to ask some unfair questions here. Who's here from a Chamber of Commerce? Yep. Okay. Is that a missed opportunity on every chamber in the region? Not to be here? Who's here from a city government? Also, really big missed opportunity, although I will do a shout out for Shannon Hine, who works her tail off to make sure that she's as connected as she possibly can be to Fort Collins Startup Week, right? But there are players in the ecosystem that don't show up. And so what do we do about that? How do we help them figure out what the value proposition is in engaging with the entrepreneurs? But on the other side of that, how do we make it dumb for them not to be here? There are, 100 entrepreneurs in this room? Should the Chamber of Commerce be here?
The mayor's office should be here.
Exactly. Okay? So, and the other piece of that is pathways. And what I mean by pathways is about industry and agnostic and type agnostic. And so we have an ecosystem that if you are a specific kind of business, it's pretty easy to navigate. But if you're a budding manufacturing company, you start at the CSU Venture Validator, and you're probably going to end scaling at the Warehouse Business Accelerator in Loveland. But what the hell are you doing in the middle? What are you supposed to do in the middle? Right? Same thing if you're a SaaS company. You're a guy who got laid off from HP. You've got a really phenomenal idea for a software service product. You know it's probably going to involve machine learning and AI, which means you're probably going to be an Innosphere company. But until you get there, what are you supposed to be doing? Do you have any idea?
No.
We'll work on that, Lisa. All right, or if you're a bakery. You know you're probably going to start with the SBDC because they're the fantastic folks who talk to brick and mortar folks. And you're probably at some point going to end up taking a loan from Colorado Lending Source because they do character loans and not collateral-based loans, which is really freaking important for entrepreneurs. But what are you doing in order to be ready to be prepped for that loan? And so one of the things that we have to do next is map the pathways for the businesses so that they understand how to navigate through our ecosystem and really get the most out of our resources and mentors and talent and all of the other things that are available to them. And so once we've done that, right, so now we've created on-ramps, we've got some intersections going on, we're building some pathways. What's the next piece? We gotta figure out where the gaps are, right? We have to identify what resources do we have too many of and what resources do we not have enough of. And for that, we're gonna need the data. And somebody's gotta start collecting that data. And one of the places we started is at Fort Collins Startup Week. We did some surveys before we did this year's, Before we did this year's programming, we ended up doing some surveys. And we figured out, okay, we have two populations that haven't really been addressed in Startup Week before. One of that is the massive amount of solopreneurs we have running around. And then the other side of that is that we have companies that have hit $100,000, but have no idea how to get bigger than that. And so Candace was fabulous in putting together our scale-up day for that. Where are we doing the surveys and understanding the data so that we get very clear about what it is that we need? Because I can tell you anecdotally, we have so many classes out there about how to start a business and what your legal entity should be. But we don't have nearly enough classes about how I file my quarterly taxes and what am I doing right now that's going to screw me on next year's tax return, right? We know there are holes. We've got to start figuring out what to do with them. And then we need to figure out the partnerships and the pipelines that we need to build in order to fill those holes. So that when we fill them, we know that we're filling them with the right things to truly enhance the ecosystem and help entrepreneurs move that next step in their business. And we need to start engaging those who need entrepreneurs. How many of you in here are from a company that has more than 250 people in it? One? Yeah, Kate, you're here because you're judging, but we love you anyway. Right? There are companies here like Flood and Peterson, like Plant Moran, who are service providers to our community. Why the hell are they not here supporting us? Why are they not here helping us build the ecosystem that allows their client base to thrive? And so we have to start engaging those folks who need us to be successful in order for their businesses to be successful. So we've done all of this, and that seems like a whole lot. What's the last piece? We got to make it grow, right? And that's the capital. We've got to grow the pie and the resources that are available to all of you so that you can continue to grow your businesses, create that tax base, employ more people, build bigger companies, and we do a self-sustaining economy in northern Colorado. So there's a couple of things that have to happen with that. One, we've got to figure out capital. And I think it was you, Mike, who told me at one point in time, if you go back and do the math, based on our GDP versus how much capital investment has happened in northern Colorado over the last decade and a half or so, we're missing about $100 million worth of capital investment here. If we had $100 million to put into this room, what would happen? Right? It would be really different. So how are we starting to attract the right kind of capital here? Because it has to be the right kind for northern Colorado. Because one of the things I hear from all of you is I don't want to build a company that I have to grow like crazy, kill myself to do just so I can exit it. I would really like to grow my business so that I can have 25, 100 employees, run the company for the next 10 or 20 years, and have a family-owned business in Northern Colorado. Well, venture capitalists, folks, don't quite understand that. So how are we bringing in new and different types of capital? And so the one thing I will want to announce tonight is that we've decided here at Launch NoCo that if you build it, they're going to come. And so this fall, we're building Invest NoCo, which is our opportunity, very much like Pitch NoCo, to put investable companies on the stage in front of the right kind of capital connections to grow the businesses here. That's going to be family equity money. That's going to be character lending money. That's going to be angel investors. It's a different kind of mindset about what we want, because so many of you have told me over and over and over again, I don't want to lose all the equity in my business. I want to be able to hang on to it. And so our job that we'll take over is really trying to help you figure out, how do I connect with the right kind of capital to actually meet the goals I have for my business? Now, that being said, this is not going to happen in a vacuum, and it's going to take a lot of work. And ecosystems need builders. And quite frankly, ecosystems need to be built by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. And so if you're not engaged in helping build the ecosystem that you are using, take a darn good look at yourself. Because you need to give back just as much as you take. It's a fundamental rule. The next piece that we're going to have to also figure out about the future is, what does collective success look like for entrepreneurship in Northern Colorado? What is it that we as a community and an ecosystem really want to commit to as a group of what do we want in Northern Colorado? Do we want to be the region where you have the most support to start your company? Do we want to be the most inclusive place on the planet to start a business? There's a lot of different options, but we as a community need to start figuring out what it is that we want to achieve together and how we want to build that. Because the next piece for us is we have to figure out what's our story. Remember that part back there when I told you we needed to start figuring out how we're going to market ourselves so we can attract the right kind of talent with skills and passion to help us build our ecosystem and our companies? Every marketer in this room will tell you you aren't going to get anywhere without a good story. What is our story, and how are we going to build it together? So my plea to you, my charge to you, and damn it, if I have to, my kick in the ass to you is to get involved. This is the time. We are sitting at a crucial juncture of which we have the opportunity to determine how we move forward as an ecosystem and a community. And if you're not involved in one way or another, your voice isn't heard. And how many of you started your companies because you wanted your voice to be the one in charge? So get involved. I think you'll be very happy that you did. The future of entrepreneurship in Northern Colorado is in all of our hands. And I would very much like to see us do something worthwhile with it. Thank you.